Hello, my name is Christopher Akpogome. You are welcome to the Chem Lab Chemistry lecture. Now, today we're going to be looking at relative atomic what mass. Last time we looked at ions, and then the next time we looked at atomic what number. So we're going to be focusing on relative atomic what mass. Relative atomic mass, otherwise called mass number. Okay, mass number. So what is relative atomic mass? I want to make it simpler for us. Relative atomic what mass. Relative atomic mass. So relative atomic mass is the sum. This is the sum of the number of protons and neutrons in an atom of an element. Okay, so relative atomic mass is what? The sum of the what number of protons and neutrons in an atom of what? An element. Now we can also call it what? Mass number. So mass number is the sum of the protons and neutrons in an atom of an element. Is that clear? Mass number is the sum of the what? Protons and neutrons in an atom of an element. That's what one mass number is. Okay? So let's look at sodium, for example. Now sodium has number of protons. Of course, if you check our last video, we told you how to get the number of protons. We said that you can always check it for better what understanding. We said that the number of protons is equal to the number of what? Electrons. Now, and we said that the number of electrons for sodium is what? 11. Okay? So, if the number of electrons for sodium, I showed you in our last class when we talked about atomic number. Okay? So, if the number of electrons is 11, so, and we said that the number of electrons is equal to the number of protons. So, the number of protons will also be what? 11. Okay? Will also be what? 11. Now, the mass number of sodium, if you look at this, is what? 22, right? Good. But now, there is a particular what instrument that is used to measure what? The relative atomic mass of what? Element. That instrument is called the mass spectrometer. Okay? The mass what? Spectrometer is used to measure the relative atomic mass of what? Element. So, this is just an estimate. Okay? It's just an estimate to help you to be able to identify, okay? To be able to identify the relative atomic mass of what? Element. So, when I say number of electrons is 11 and number of protons is 11, and 11 plus 11, remember we said relative atomic mass is the sum of what? Proton and electron, right? So when we add these two, it will give us 22. Follow me, we are going sorry. It will give us what? 22. Now 22 is just what? An estimate. Okay? By the time we use our mass spectrometer to measure the relative atomic mass of what? Sodium, it will give us 23. Yes, it will give us what? 23. That's why in questions that relates to relative atomic mass, whenever they are giving us the mass number of an element, they don't usually tell us to calculate it. They don't usually tell us to calculate it. They always give us the what? The value. Now, if they want you to calculate it, they will have to give you a mass spectrometer to use to measure it. Okay? It is with this mass spectrometer that you can use to measure the specific, the exact relative atomic mass of what? Sodium or any what element. It is this mass spectrometer that you can use to measure the mass number. Okay? the number of what particles that makes up what sodium, the number of what mass, the amount of what mass, the amount of particles that make up what sodium. So you use the mass spectrometer to do that, okay, to measure the exact what value. So this one is just what an estimate. So the relative atomic mass is the sum of the number of protons and neutrons in an atom of an element. Or I could include relative atomic mass is the what estimate sum of the number of protons and neutrons in an atom of what an element. This explanation is actually to make you understand better what relative atomic what mass is, okay, to make you understand better, make you have a clue, an idea of what relative atomic mass is all about, okay. All right, now having said that, let's move over to relative molecular mass. Relative molecular mass. Relative molecular mass. Now, first of all, let's cast our mind to what a molecule is. Now, we said molecule is what? Group of atoms. So we have two or more. That's what we said, right? If you check our class, when we looked at atoms, molecules, and ions, that's the title of the video, so you can check that out. We said molecule is group of what? Atoms. That is two or more atoms. So molecule is made up of what? Two or more what? Atoms. That's what we said, right? Now, we're now looking at molecular mass. Molecular mass. Now, molecular mass is actually what? The sum, listen, the sum of the atomic mass of each element that make up the what? Molecule. Molecular mass sum of the atomic mass of each element that make up the molecule. Okay, that's molecular mass. That's molecular mass. Sum of the atomic mass, okay, of each of the elements that make up what? The molecule. Sum of the atomic mass of each of the elements that make up the what? The molecule. That is what molecular mass is. Okay? Now you are wondering, why do they have to put relative? They put relative because they are comparing this mass to what? 1/12 of what? Carbon. So they are comparing it to what? Another what? Element. Alright? Another what? Element. Now you might be asking, why do they have to compare it? Because that element generally has a particular mass. That is obvious. Okay? That's why they always compare. So, you know, when you want to weigh something, you already know the mass of this one, a known mass. You already know the mass of this one. So when you put this one and you put the other one on the other side, what happens? If it happens that this other one on the other side draws down, such that the one that has a known mass goes up, it means that that one that draws down has a higher what mass than the one that went up. Is it not so? So that's why they call it relative. So they are comparing it with another what element. Another element that has a standard mass, that has a known mass. Exactly. That's why I say relative. So molecular mass is what? Sum of the atomic mass of each element that make up what? The molecule. So let's look at a molecule now. Let's say CaCO3. CaCO3. Now, the question here is what is the molecular mass of this molecule? What is the molecular mass of this what? Molecule. Now, first of all, we'll look at what is the atomic mass. A subscript arrow. Okay, that's relative atomic what? Mass. Relative atomic mass of what? Calcium is what? That's what we ask ourselves. Now, relative atomic mass of calcium, I told you before that the relative atomic mass is usually what? Given. Okay? They don't. The relative atomic mass of what? Calcium is what? 40. That of carbon is 12. That of oxygen is 16. Now, remember, relative atomic mass is connected to the number of atoms. Okay? And then in this oxygen, cast your mind back to the topic atoms. We said that the subscript that is written close to the word element tells us the number of atoms that are there. So, how many atoms of oxygen do we have? We have what? 3. Because of this 3 that they put here. So, if the relative atomic mass of one atom is 16, and we have 3 atoms, so we multiply this one by 3, which will give us what? 48. Now, let's solve for the what? Relative molecular mass for this what? Compound. So, Ca. So, the relative molecular mass, Mr, for the compound CaCO3 is equal to, we add, remember we said molecular mass or relative molecular mass is the sum of the what? Atomic masses. Now, these are the atomic masses. These are the atomic masses. So, we will now add them. Ca is 40 plus C is 12 plus O is what? 48. So, when we sum this up, it will give us 100 gram. Remember, it's mass, so the unit is what? Gram. Okay? The same thing with what? Atomic mass. The unit is also what? Gram. Okay? So, the relative molecular mass, that is the molecular mass of this molecule, is what? 100 gram. By adding the what? The atomic mass of each of the elements. Calcium, carbon, oxygen. Or by adding the atomic mass of each atom that make up the what? The molecule. Alright, thank you very much for joining us today. Please don't forget to click on the subscribe button to subscribe to our channel, The Chem Lab, so that you can always get notification of any new video that we upload. Thank you very much. Do have a nice day.